love looking at a plate of food that I just did a cooking class on Saturday, and saying, okay, these are Jay's mushrooms, this is Anne's broccoli. Like, I know the names of the people that grow the food that I'm eating. And there's so much love in that and life in that and appreciation from my part. I feel so grateful to have found that here.
Welcome to the Delicious Alignment Body Love and Food Freedom Podcast, where we discuss all things law of attraction and learning how to love your body and your food, as well as how to allow more health and abundance into your life with ease. I'm your host, Rhonda Ryder, author of Delicious Alignment. Today, I interview seasonal chef and holistic coach, Laurie RIchardone. Laurie teaches cooking classes on healthy seasonal eating, is an author on books about cultural cooking, and empowers people to achieve well-being through food and lifestyle. Her podcast, A Taste for All Seasons, explores vibrant, delicious living through the food we eat and the mindfulness we practice. On a side note, turns out we're both former hairdressers, both originally from New York City, both were guided to move to Asheville, North Carolina, and both love food. What are the odds? In this episode, Laurie and I talk all things simple recipes, cooking for one, the amazing organic food resources here in Asheville, which I can attest to, conscious eating, the importance of eating happily, and the benefits of seasonal cooking. You're going to love it. Hello, Laurie.
Hello, Rhonda.
Great to see you, and I'm so excited to talk to you today.
It's good to see you too. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Yeah, and we live in the same city, so
we do.
And it's I'm looking forward to seeing more of you. We live in Asheville, beautiful Asheville. Today's interview, I can't wait to talk to you about all things celebrating food and loving your food. And you are an amazing chef. I know you sent some. I enjoyed that. What was it? A tort?
It was a tart. It was a caramelized onion and goat cheese tart with a beautiful pastry crust.
Laurie sent this home with my husband because my husband, Steve, is helping her with some technical stuff for her podcast. And she sent me home this beautiful, beautiful tart. Why am I saying tort?
Tomatoes. A tart.
I think he said
tort. You can call it whatever you want to.
I think he said tort. That's why I was okay.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Oh my God. It was so good.
Thank you.
You can have your own restaurant, and we'll talk about that because
yes. I made a very conscious decision not to do that, but yes, we'll save that for later.
Yeah, great. So the reason why I wanted to interview you, Laurie, as you know, is because it seems like we have very simpatico things in common. We both love Abraham Hicks. We both love food. And I feel I've been putting that out to the universe that I really would like to connect with some people that love food and celebrate food. And you are the epitome of that.
Oh. And well, thank you. That's so sweet of you to say that. And I took all of that in.
Yeah, great. And I want people to hear your story because it's very, very fascinating and how you got to where you are today, where you're doing what you love, teaching cooking classes and helping people with their health and all of this really good stuff. Let's start with, I want to start with the story of how you were a hairdresser like me. We were both hairdressers.
Yes. And me for many, many years. I mean, I had a salon and that was my career for 34 years.
Yes. Not me. No. Like I shared with you before, I did it for a little while through college on weekends, and I had some spending money and that was about it. It wasn't where I excelled the most, but I still cut my
We all have our gifts and talents, and some of us, we all have many gifts and talents, actually, if we really tap into that we're not even aware of necessarily, or that we take for
yes.
granted.
Yes, and it turns out so you were a hairdresser for 34 years. Let's talk about that before you got into being a chef and teaching cooking classes, etc. You were a hairdresser, an editorial hairdresser.
Yes, I
Yeah.
started out in New York, was where my
Mm-hmm.
career started, probably even before that, Brooklyn. Really, my Barbie dolls, I was 8 years old. I cut all my Barbie dolls' hair. And
Really?
I looked at them many years later, and the haircuts were actually still relevant, timeless, which to me is what modern is, but not to digress. Editorial hairdresser, I worked in a salon, and I also worked with a very talented man who worked on all, this was the days of the supermodels, Kate Moss, those girls, Christy Turlington. And so I worked with photographers, which it's all really connected in terms of the food and the hairdressing, because it's about creating something beautiful, whatever the
Yes.
medium is. So
Yes.
yes, editorial hairdresser, worked in salons for a long time in New York, was in my early 30s. It was just, got a little burnt out in New York, which is my hometown, and I still consider myself a New Yorker. But Spirit told me to go to Santa Fe, and I did, and moved there in 93 and opened up a salon in 1870, Adobe House, Anita Louise, which I named after my mother,
Mm.
and did hairdressing for 20 years. I had my salon in Santa Fe and loved
Wow.
every moment of it.
Now, were you born in New York City or you
I
were
was born in Brooklyn.
okay, so we
I'm a
might have had
Brooklyn girl.
I was born in Woodhaven, Queens. So another thing we have in common. Yeah, New Yorkers. Wow, amazing. That's just so amazing to me to be a hairdresser in New York City working with these famous supermodels. And let me know, what was that like? I know we talked about that a little bit. Like
Yeah,
you would think that these supermodels loved their bodies and were confident. And as we all know, that's not necessarily always true.
no,
So
it
why don't you
isn't.
can you tell me a little bit about what that was like? Well, what were they like? Were they very insecure about how they, because we some of us want to be like that, right? We think that's the level, that's what we're supposed to look like. And
Yeah,
then can you tell us
yeah.
about their psyche a little
Sure.
bit?
And my experience and how that affected me in my own personal life as well. Uh, a lot of them, not all, certainly, a lot of insecurities, and like all young people, like some of them came up when they were, 13, 14, 15. Who's really secure at that age? Not too many people. Maybe today, fast forward, it's a little different, there's different parenting and things like that, but there was a lot of insecurity and a lot of comparing. And even though I was still, 20s, early 30s, comparing yourself to someone, these beautiful models who you thought, were stunning and had it all together, but really, they had those same insecurities. And they compared that there was a lot of competitiveness. I mean, some of the girls and the guys were just, beautiful, very sweet beings, but that insecurity kind of can translate into, just kind of,
Hmm.
just that insecurity comes out in different ways. It comes out maybe getting a little defensive or a little arrogant, because underneath there is that insecurity. And it was challenging to be around all these beautiful models, which at that time, all these very skinny stick model types like
Hmm.
Twiggy. Thank goodness that's changing now and that's evolved. But you compared yourself, and
Hmm.
it affects your self-esteem, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine, or I guess I can imagine. But I just find it fascinating that y- for me anyway, society, diet culture, growing up as a young girl, it's like, oh, you're supposed to be
Yeah.
look like this and look like and be very thin, and then yet here you are working with these supermodels. And I interviewed Julie Loggins, who is the ex-wife of Kenny Loggins, and she was modeling, and she said the same thing about the models that she met and worked with, that the same thing, they were all they were all,
Well,
very
and yeah, and they ate very little food for the most part. If
starving
they had,
themselves.
and I can relate to that. I shared that with you. I had food issues when I was younger and had a very distorted view of my long, beautiful body, a young woman, but still thought I could always lose 5 pounds. And that is a challenging way, particularly if you're around that, being in the beauty industry where that was important. It affects you.
Well, you did mention to me that you did get anorexia. When was it, around that time, or tell me?
I was, I think maybe 17, 18, which I was doing hairdressing. I started very young. So I was about 17, 18. And again, wanting to look a particular way, reading all the fashion magazines because I was interested in that. Wasn't labeled anorexia at the time. I remember my parents just looked at me and thought, my gosh, she's disappearing, her
Mhm.
body. And my father, who was a Northern Italian chef, they took me out to dinner, like that was their solution. Come on, eat,
Well,
time to
sure.
have something to eat, which of
Yeah.
course made sense. And I could always just remember picking at my food, like I thought if I just ate a small amount of something, that was going to affect the way I looked. So thank goodness that is no longer the case, and I celebrate food 100%. But that was a challenging time, a time of a lot of lessons, and you just have to sometimes go through those things until you develop your own path of consciousness. And because I started being conscious of my spiritual path at a very young age. So that really helped
Mm.
in getting healthy and
Yeah.
feeling like I was a whole person and I'm just perfect the way I am.
Yeah. So how many years were you going through that? Were you anorexic?
You know, a few years, I would say. And you know what, Rhonda, to be honest, to this day, I do pay attention. I like having my body look a certain way. I feel comfortable when I'm at a certain weight.
Mhm.
Not that I
Mhm.
weigh myself ever. I do not even have a scale in my house. I don't want a scale in my house. Just, you know how your body feels, right? It's about
Sure.
the feeling, to bring it. Abraham's work is a lot about that. So, I don't really remember exactly, but I do remember as I got older and really had just an appreciation for food, which I have my whole life. I actually started cooking when I was 10 years old. So it's an element that's always been something I was interested in and had a passion for. So, a long time,
Yeah.
probably until maybe I left New York and moved to Santa Fe, where I didn't feel that, and it's self-inflicted pressure, I
Mhm. Mhm.
where I was just like, okay, take a breath. You can, I was doing my own thing, opening my own business, very entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that from that confidence and doing certain things, that it's like, wow, I could do these things for myself on my own, helped in the way I perceived that self-image.
Let's talk about food, and then how you got into being being a chef, and teaching classes, online classes, and in-person classes, and all of that. How did you make that transition?
Well, like I said, I had a salon in Santa Fe for 20 years in a building that belonged to my former husband and I. And when I made the decision, okay, I'm done with hairdressing, I closed my salon and I converted it into, I lived there, and I also converted the studio part into, I started doing cooking classes. And I've had a love affair with food, Rhonda, since I'm 10 years old. I can remember the first moment at my grandmother's house, making meatballs on Saturday, because my sister and I lived there on the weekends. And I, put everything together, grated the cheese, everything by hand. And I remember doing that and then cooking them and putting them into the sauce and tasting them. And that's when I started my love affair with food. I could remember that moment, just the smell, the taste, the connection with my grandmother, all the love that went into it. And I've had a love affair with food ever since. And when you asked me earlier about having a restaurant, my parents were restaurateurs, worked in the restaurant industry, and I really stayed away from it. I wanted no part of that, although not even maybe aware of it. And my father was also one of my early teachers. So always cooking and learning. Even when I had my salon, holidays, events were always at our house, my house, where I cooked for everyone. I mean, we always had holidays. I always loved cooking. It was always kind of my respite. That's where I would kind of relax if I was feeling stressed or overwhelmed. So going back to, I turned my salon into a studio. And then I decided that Santa Fe was kind of complete with me and me complete with it after 23 years. And kind of little pit stop in Naples, Florida, where I taught cooking at, I worked at Sur La Table in their kitchen as a KA, kitchen assistant. Do a lot of the assistant work, but learned a lot. And I also worked in a family, it's called The Good Life in Naples, where I started teaching. I started teaching like 4, and it built up to like 14 people that I was, 3-course menus, teaching seasonal cooking and sharing stories and just feeding people. And I loved it. So, and I did it also in Charleston too. And fast forward, being in Asheville.
And how did you wind up in Asheville?
I might have mentioned this to you. Organic farming is really important to me. Like the food that I put in my body, where it comes from, this food is vibrational. And Naples, very hot. Charleston also didn't have a lot of organic farming. It just didn't feel like home to me. And I think I mentioned this to you. I was reading a food memoir, and I went to her website when I was finished, and it said that she's doing a cooking course at the Biltmore in Asheville. And then I got a newsletter from Abraham, because I've been listening to Abraham for 20 years, on and off, more on and off, along with other people. And the newsletter was, Esther Hicks is doing an event in Asheville. I said, I have to go to Asheville. So I got in my car from Charleston and drove here. And I remember seeing the Blue Ridge Mountains and getting very emotional. I felt like I was coming home.
That's the same way I felt like when I used to come here on some vacations, and I just felt, like that feeling like, yes, coming home.
And Santa Fe, different mountain, different landscape, but the Rocky Mountains, as much as I love the ocean and grew up with that, I resonate with living in the mountains. So Asheville, even though they're very different, reminded me in some ways of Santa Fe. And the organic farmers here, we have over 4,000 plants. The ecosystem in this part of the world is astounding, and that really excited me. So it was the organic farmers, which, I have a relationship with all of my farmers. They've pretty much all been on my show talking about food and how they grow their food and why they grow their food. And it's
so you have them as guests on your podcast show?
I've interviewed
oh my God. I love that.
A lot of different farmers, and yes. So
we'll talk about your podcast later at the end, but just say the name of it right now. The
my
name of
podcast is A Taste for All Seasons.
Yes, A Taste for All Seasons. So you talk about recipes, and you give out recipes, and you celebrate food. That's why I love you, and I wanted to have you on the show, is this celebration of food that I am so excited about. And I didn't know that. I didn't realize that you actually have these organic farmers on your show.
I love looking at a plate of food that I just did a cooking class on Saturday, and saying, okay, these are Jay's mushrooms, this is Anne's broccoli. Like, I know the names of the people that grow the food that I'm eating. And there's so much love in that and life in that and appreciation from my part. I feel so grateful to have found that here.
Oh
It's
my gosh, I just love what you're saying because we always talk about that a lot in delicious alignment and just before eating, getting yourself in a vibrational place. Think about the people that prepared the food, that
yeah,
that grew the food, that all of that. And you are doing that. You are actually talking to them and you have relationships with the people that you're getting your food
I know
from.
it is pretty amazing. And
Oh my goodness.
someone would have said even 5 years ago, maybe, or that my life would look the way it does. I didn't see it coming, even though every choice I believe that we make in life leads us to what's next. And I think that, to bring it back to Abraham for a moment, talks about people that are familiar with the vortex or source or spirit. There's a lot of different names for it, all the same thing from my perspective. But all those desires, sometimes we're not even consciously aware of them, but they're there. That love, like the love of food, has always been there. And then I think, like the universe will say, well, okay, well, let's put her here or bring this person in. And like begets like. I think that we attract, whether it's positive or not, we attract, whether it's food, relationships. So, being mindful, which is also part of the work I do, empowering people to achieve their best self, vitality, optimal health through food, but also through mindfulness practices and loving themselves as well. Because you could eat all the organic food and eat really, really healthy. But if your thoughts aren't positive or you're in a toxic relationship, you're not going to be completely healthy. Food is vibrational. Who's growing it? Is it grown in healthy soil? Is there love in it? That is going to give you a higher vibrational ingredient. Like when I have lettuce at one of my organic farmers here, Thatchmore Farms in Asheville, the energy in this bowl of lettuce, I feel it. Maybe not everyone, they would taste it. So food is vibrational.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's vibrational.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's connected. It's all energy. So I think, the quality of food for me is very important. Was it grown in a healthy way?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have chemicals and things like that? I think is important, as well as how we put something in our mouth. Am I eating it happily? Am I eating it with guilt? All of those elements affect our organs and our mood. That self-criticism. That's an ingredient.
Mm. Very good. I love how you said that. I never looked at it that way. Like that is also an ingredient.
Mhm.
Self-criticism.
Oh.
What's in your food? Do you have some self-criticism in there? Do you have some, really?
No,
That's
I
fast. Yeah.
my mother, I made me think of my mother, because she's like, Laura, and my mother's very proud of me and she just loves all that I do. And I've actually gotten her to shift to, because she did have allergies for gluten at 86. She shifted her diet. But, I say certain things and use certain semantics or terminologies. It's like, Lord, I don't really know what you're talking about. So we have to be aware of our audience, who we're speaking to, so that people can have an understanding in a simple way, not so esoteric, because I can go there, and I was a philosophy major when I went to Hunter College all those years ago. So I could have a very kind of abstract look at certain things. And we have to break that down a little bit so that people, to meet them where they are, so that they could feel included and have an understanding of what we're talking about. Because not everyone necessarily looks at life as, where's my vibration? Where's my, I wake up
Mm-hmm.
every morning to see, and some days, as we could all say this, are, better than others. Some days we're a little off. But whatever that feeling is, or if we ate something, to just that self-love, I think is the probably the biggest ingredient in how
Mm-hmm.
we digest, whether it's food, ideas, thoughts.
Yes. Well, you can get as esoteric as you like here, Laurie. This is the audience for it. And although I do agree with you, you want to meet people where they are. I'm sure in a lot of your cooking classes, you're not necessarily going into all of this, but and you do it probably in a different way, in a way that they would understand, or you're just following your intuition and you communicating. But I think it is becoming more and more mainstream, these teachings, law of attraction, and I
Yes.
just love that. So tell me more about your thoughts on food and mindfulness.
Well, again, like anything, that we want to pay attention, how we're eating something. So for example, and for me, the mindfulness part is because I do eat, organically grown ingredients whenever possible, to put that in your body. Again, that vibration of just beautiful, healthy food, we're going to benefit from that. So to just really, like, if I'm going to make a decision to eat, half a batch of cookies that I baked, but I call my sweets also healthy indulgences. I don't like to, for me, I like to just be aware of certain ingredients, and organically grown ingredients are important to me. But if you're going to eat something, if you're going to make a decision to eat something, whatever it is, to eat it with, to be aware, to be conscious of how you're eating it. I like to bless my food before I eat
Mm-hmm.
something, and take a moment. I just did a podcast. My last podcast was on dinners for one, like the benefits of dinners for one. You make time to prepare food, to go buy your ingredients. Let's take some time. Let's be mindful about how we're eating it. I like to bless my dish. I like to acknowledge my farmers. All of that raises our vibration, gives us much more appreciation and acknowledgement for what we're eating. And also, I think just to really just acknowledge where our food is coming from, what we're eating, making a choice to eat this. My body's happy. I want that raspberry cashew cheesecake right now. It might have a little bit, more sugar than someone might think, but I think if we eat that with appreciation and love and
Mm-hmm.
gratitude, I think gratitude is another ingredient that
Yes,
is
absolutely.
is really important. I start my day every day with gratitude prayers, even for the smallest things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't even pay attention, or we just, again, take it for granted. But anyway, the food and mindfulness, it's that Gemini mind that I have. I could talk
Oh, that.
about food all day long, but not to
Yeah, yeah. Well,
fill me in a
you,
little bit.
yes, I know, and I love that you add the mindfulness piece to everything that you do. I want to touch upon what you just said about dinners for one,
Yeah.
because for me, I mean, I do live with three other people. I cook for my dad lives with us, so I do cook for him and my husband. I try to cook for him, but we like different things. However, if I was living alone, I'm not sure that I would put I almost want to say, um, it's a ritual or tradition, or the effort or the love and the care, or I don't know what the word is, but I know
Time.
time. Yes, time. Time, not T.
Time, not Time. Time should go in there, but not,
Yeah.
don't pay attention to the other time.
Exactly. And I am just so impressed with how, because I've seen some of your things on Instagram or wherever, and you're cooking, and you're cooking for yourself, but just like on a practical level, you're going through making these beautiful, dishes. So what do you do with the leftovers? You freeze them,
Oh,
or
I know. Well, I eat them. What do I say? Cook once, eat thrice. And that's one of my suggestions to people. If you're cooking for yourself, sometimes my leftovers don't make it to day 3, and it's so delicious I can't stop eating. But you could freeze things. When I
mm-hmm.
bake bread, because I love homemade bread.
Mm-hmm.
I'll slice it and put it in the freezer so that I can pull it out and have it for a month, even maybe when I want, something
Yeah.
with toast, or make French toast with it, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're going to make. But that cooking once, like 2 days ago, I made butternut squashes in season right now, and I get them from my farmers, which I never really acknowledge the vibrant orange color that when you get it that's locally grown, picked at its peak, all of those elements also not only change the vibration, but the flavor, the taste. And I stuffed them with, and you can have some easy recipes. I stuffed them with nuts and seeds and some grated ginger. I'm kind of stopping myself. I have my friend who was just visiting this week, and she said, Laurie, when you say it's simple, it might be simple to you, but it's not simple.
Right.
She's always bringing that to my attention. So I try to be mindful of that. Like, okay, Laurie, someone that, cooks really simply, but roast some butternut squash. Roast, you're going to put the oven on 400, use that energy, whatever. Take 2 whole squashes and roast them. Make a soup, stuff them with some nuts and seeds. You can do so many different things. Put them in a salad. So you could create. I like having a principal ingredient. I encourage people to do that, whether, it's a steak or turkey meatballs was the recipe I just shared for the dinner for one, that I pair with different sides so that I have dinner for 3 nights. So I'm not cooking really every single day. And I also say, the kitchen's the heart of the home, Rhonda, like what's
Mm-hmm.
wrong with spending a little time in the kitchen? And I find it very relaxing. It could be a meditation. And also do your prep work ahead. On a Sunday or whatever day off you have, do some prep, cut up some ingredients, put them in containers, label them. Then it's like a cooking show. You just pull it out and you just saute your vegetables. You don't have to chop and do all those things. So that is, there are a lot of different elements that you can make cooking more desirable for yourself. And again, you're talking to someone, I've been around food my whole life, and beautiful food, and growing up in New York. So I have a great appreciation for really good food. So I want to spend time cooking it, and it makes me
Yes.
happy, brings me joy.
Yes. So,
Like even I'll make a pot of brown rice, and then I'll fill it with different herbs that are in season, or garlic or ginger, or whatever. Get creative. And also I really encourage people not to worry about making some mistakes. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just start with some good ingredients and nurture yourself in that way. If it doesn't come out great, that's okay. You did a beautiful thing. And
yeah.
just keep going with it, keep practicing. I think the more one cooks for themselves and they feel more comfortable. I had he lives here in Asheville. He said, Laurie, I want to eat. I met him at a cafe one day and we started talking. I told him what I did, and he reached out to me and said, he said, I know nothing about cooking, but I want to eat healthier, not healthy, but healthier. I
Yeah.
said, okay. So I paid attention to that. You don't want to project where you are in your diet onto other
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
people. And so I taught him certain basics, like how to roast a chicken. I roasted a chicken the other night for myself, throwing in veggies, lots of garlic, a whole chicken, which is really a lot easier than you think. And I had fabulous roasted chicken for 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, basic things, a pot of rice, a roast chicken, some soups, just basic elements, basic skills in the kitchen. Some knife skills are helpful. Because I think when we enjoy what we're doing, it's like, well, this is fun. I love chopping.
So I have been like making like cauliflower steaks and roasting them
Yes,
in
yes,
the
beautiful,
oven with a little bit of olive oil and curry powder.
beautiful.
And my husband really likes that. He'll eat that.
Yes,
And we eat a lot of broccoli. I just
yes,
love broccoli.
yes.
And just steaming that and then putting the, garlic and just making that with some gluten-free pasta. I mean that's like the extent of my cooking skills.
That's okay. That's okay. I mean, you're cooking, and you just made me think you can do this both with cauliflower. In my class on Saturday, a broccoli soup that it was Ann's broccoli from Gaining Ground Farm here in Asheville. Great, beautiful farmer. The soup has 3 ingredients in it, and water is one of them. It's salt, broccoli, water, lemon, and then I embellished it a little bit. So you can throw your broccoli in a pot. You have to season your water. I'm giving you a little, or everyone, just a little tiny little quick recipe.
I love it. I love it.
So you take just the florets. You kind of hold your broccoli on, on its head, all the broccoli on the bottom, little florets, heavily salted water. You want to taste the water because the water is your broth. And I always talk about seasoning food from the inside out. So whether it's pasta or broccoli, or if you're steaming or boiling, perfectly seasoned water, taste it. Make sure you taste the salt. Cook the broccoli, throw the broccoli into a blender, Vitamix, the water just to cover it, lemon, and that's it. And then taste it for seasoning. Just that alone is delicious and gorgeous. You can do that with cauliflower. You want to embellish it a little bit more. You could add a little coconut milk to it, or curry. You can just take it wherever your imagination takes you. That broccoli soup, you can do it with cauliflower too, literally would take you 10 minutes to make a gorgeous homemade soup that you could have for a couple of days. On my website, on the homepage, there's a beautiful, it's kind of my holiday gift, a holiday ebook that has beautiful appetizers, beautiful images. I also do all my own food photography, so all the food recipes on my website is all my photography, which I love. That's the visual aspect that comes out. That's the background coming through. So I have a beautiful holiday ebook. That's a gift. It's a giveaway. I also just published.
And where do they go? That's just right on
the homepage.
Okay.
If you put your email in, then it will go to your e-box.
Okay.
And it's a fantastic book, and it has a lot of inspirational tips for presentation, really easy, how you can present food with things like turmeric and color and herbs and bundles of herbs. So it's really fun. And then I also, which I'm very excited about, just published, I have an online program. It's a master gluten-free Italian cooking series that has 7 videos and intros of me just introducing, talking about the origin, where the recipe comes from. And I'm Italian as well. So, and a lot of people, pizza, chicken parmesan, all those foods that people love. Well, I'm gluten-free, I can't eat that. Well, yes, you can. So this cooking course series is a series of videos, also printouts, resources.
And I just have to say that tart that you sent home with my husband, that was gluten-free, and I could not believe that was gluten-free. It was like a pie crust, or
it was a pastry crust.
Pastry crust, yes. Oh my! It did not taste gluten-free at all.
None of my.
What is the flour that you? What did
that was Thomas Keller, who's one of my favorite chefs, and I had the good fortune of eating his restaurants over the years. The French Laundry. He developed in his kitchen a gluten-free all-purpose flour. It's called Cup for Cup. That case, cup for the number 4 cup. And it's your all-purpose flour. So for my pastry crusts, I use Thomas Keller's Cup for Cup. When I make almond cakes or certain breads, I use a lot of almond flour. For me, I like, and a lot of people want to eat keto or paleo, keep the carbs low. So, depending on, there's no one size fits all, Rhonda, right? Everyone eats a different way. So you could have beautiful gluten-free cooking. And the course is wonderful because you can do it at your own pace, listen to a video, make a printout, you have that for always. So I have that course there. All my podcasts are also on my website, and a plethora of recipes that are all seasonal, because I am a seasonal chef first and foremost. I believe when we cook and live our lives with the seasons, it's harmonious.
Oh, little light bulb went off now in my head, like what seasonal chef means. I know it sounds so self-explanatory, but
it isn't necessarily.
Now I get it. It's like you're cooking with the foods that are fresh now.
that are like
Yes.
tomatoes. I personally don't eat tomatoes in the winter because they don't taste like tomatoes. But when you have a tomato picked at its peak at the end of summer and then it's local and grown with love, I actually ate too many tomatoes. I take some people, I have a kinesiologist I work with, he said, Laurie, back off from the tomatoes. But
Uh-huh.
when food is in season and picked in that way, it tastes exponentially better. But also
Mm,
to live seasonally. I mean, if we look at nature, right? Trees, they're starting to lose their leaves and get quiet and shut down. They need to rest. Well, we need to rest. Our mind needs to rest. So seasonal living and eating, they're connected. Does that make
mm. It
sense?
makes total sense. Like I said, the little light bulb went off. Oh, seasonal. Yes, I get it. Seasonal. You're cooking because you're cooking this because it's a holiday season or it's the winter season, and people like, no, you're cooking this. You have this recipe now because these vegetables are at their nutrient richest and their
Yes.
peak and of
Yes.
flavor and deliciousness.
And I don't know about you, but if you notice, like in the winter, as it gets colder, I still eat salads because my farmer does have a greenhouse and I can get her greens all year. But I want those butternut squashes. I want the sweet potatoes. Our body, if we pay attention, and that's where the mindfulness comes in, our body tells us what it wants. And we
Mm.
should pay attention and listen to that.
Mhm.
Even if it's
Mhm.
a raspberry cashew cheesecake or ginger snap cookies or to just, excuse me, to acknowledge that. So not only do I eat with seasonally, but I live my life that way. I pay attention to, okay, it's winter. We want some warmer spices, kind of an Ayurvedic approach, which is one way to eat, turmeric and cinnamon and cardamom and all those spices that are connected to this time of the year for good reason
Mm.
because our body wants warmer food right now. So, it's just
Wow.
paying attention.
Yeah, I encourage people to go check out your website and see all your offerings because I'm just really excited about this conversation. It gets me more excited about cooking. Like I said, I've never really been a big person, cooking in the kitchen,
Yeah,
spending a lot of time
I
there,
get it.
and yet you teach easy ways, right? Easy, fast.
Absolutely. In my home kitchen in North Asheville, I do classes, frequently, and I love teaching and I love sharing food. I'm Italian. It's like, come on, Ja, eat. But I
Yes.
just love sharing beautiful food, and I get excited when my class on Saturday, they were like, oh my gosh, like because it was simple dishes. You have to pay attention to your audience. And they were so surprised how deliciously you can cook with with simple ingredients. Like we
Yeah.
made chestnut crepes. You have a batter, and chestnut crepes, you can put anything in, both sweet and savory. So again, it's that cooking once, make a batch of crepes from chestnut flour or garbanzo flour. Both recipes are on my website. And then and then
Chestnut.
I put them in chestnut
Chestnut.
flour.
Okay.
Amazing. And then, okay, mushrooms right now, warm mushrooms and spices. And I call it my healthy comfort food. And I made a mushroom ragu, which is 10 minutes, I kid you not. And you wrap it in these beautiful chestnut crepes, and you have beautiful, delicious dinners that go right to the heart. And I talk about vibration. When you take a
Yeah.
bite of that, they're
And I'm
happy.
so lucky because occasionally I get like my husband is friends with Laurie and they go to the same kind of spiritual groups, and then he brings home some goodies sometimes and I just get to taste it. So I'm a little a little spoiled, and he is a lot more spoiled because he gets to experience it. So great. Laurie, I'm so excited. I just had one more question about Abraham Hicks. When did you discover Abraham and what was that like?
I'm pausing
Oh,
because
it's
I'm
a
really
20-year.
trying.
Yeah, you did say it was
Oh
like
yeah, it was
20
a
years
long
ago.
time ago, and I remember I used to, in my salon, particularly if I needed to ground myself, I would go and we had a back room where I made my products. I also have a beautiful wellness line of essential oils and beautiful products, and I would put my headphones on and put on an Abraham Hicks video or tape, something, and just listen to it, even just for 5 or 10 minutes. And that would it shifted my energy almost as soon as she started speaking. It's that powerful. If you're, tuning in to that element and wanting and being aware of our thoughts also, because Abraham talks a lot about, like, what are you thinking? And, it's like we can't go from feeling, to use the word negative or unhappy or whatever, to like elated. So, she speaks about, kind of getting neutral. I use that a lot in my practice. Okay, Laurie, so you're over here right now. You want to get, to a higher vibration or feel good. So just one of my favorite mantras from her is everything always works out.
Yes. Oh, that's mine too. Yeah.
Everything always works out for me.
Yeah.
How do I know that? Because everything always works out for me. And with that repetition, because I do believe rewiring the brain cells, takes some practice. So I encourage people all the time to listen to Abraham or something, whatever resonates with you, but something that keeps your mind and your heart in a higher vibrational place. So I'm grateful for the teachings of Abraham Hicks, and I share that work with people all the time.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, Laurie, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you again. If you'd like to get Laurie's free holiday recipe book, go to laurierichardone.com. If you want to find out about her health coaching, if you want to find out about her cooking, Italian gluten-free cooking classes. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding?
Yeah,
Wow.
they're pretty amazing.
Yes, I can't wait to hear more about that. I'm going to go check that out.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Laurie. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Laurie RIchardone. I would love it if you would subscribe to this podcast and leave a review or comment on the video. We want to help more people discover the possibility of real freedom around our food and our bodies. Find all the links mentioned in this podcast at deliciousalignment.com/podcast and make sure to join my Facebook group, Delicious Alignment-Abraham Hicks. Thank you so much for listening.